I've taken a lot of photos over the last 10 years. Some really good, some really bad. Some get me paid and end up in galleries and purchased, and some end up in a trash bin in my home or the deleted folder bin on my Mac. I mean, there is no in between. It's either good or it's bad for the most part. But along that journey, I've shot every single format possible. 1-inch sensor, micro four third, APS-C, full frame, medium format. I've shot both 120 and 35 millimeter film. Actually, it's just started out my whole photography career shooting 35 millimeter film. I've ran through every single type of photography, taken photos with almost every different brand from Sony, Canon, Olympus, Fujifilm, etc. I've shot DSLR, mirrorless, and even right now with shooting Leica in bodies for about 90% of my actual paid work and about 100% of my personal work. This is what I choose to shoot. And it's a fantastic system. It's a fantastic camera. Don't get me wrong, but this camera has hurt my photography in sometimes huge ways. And even more, this camera has really exposed a lot of issues that I have with my own personal photography. And it's something that a lot of people don't bring up whenever it comes to the allure and the luster of Leica. And there's just some things that I want to kind of speak to in this video. Now, before the Leica fanboys come out of the woodworks to say, oh, well, you slow down, it makes you better, you should be making, not taking, all these things. Listen, let's get through some things and how I feel about Leica. Number one, it's just a tool. Number two, they're overpriced brand new. Don't ever buy a brand new Leica. Number three, they're not gonna make you a better photographer, period. Stop saying that. Number four, if you have an issue with shooting too fast and needing to slow down, you can slow down on any camera. I shot film and I can blow through a roll like that whenever I'm filming it. I've shot digital and I can walk for hours and not take a single photo because I'm not filming it. If you take too many photos and if you have to learn to slow down, that's because you aren't a patient photographer. That has nothing to do with your camera. Stop using your tool as a crutch. Get over yourself. But I do want to speak to not only just the negatives when it comes to this, but also a couple of benefits with it. I love the rangefinder format. I love being able to focus with this. Is it as quick as autofocus? Absolutely not. And I want to get that out of the way. No, it is not faster than autofocus unless you're doing zone focusing. But even then, you're kind of just, again, you're focusing on a zone. It's not that there's any snap critical focus all the time. You're just getting good enough focus to be able to move along. And a lot of times that's really, really good. You see, I use zone focus and I stopped down quite a bit ever since I've had DSLR cameras. This is with autofocus or without autofocus. It's just the way that I was trained and the way that I was mentored in photography. And so I am someone who has never really felt the need for critical focus, but there are times where missing critical focus does kind of get on my nerves. And on Leica, I always have to compensate for that. Now I can shoot at 1.5 and 2.8 and f2 and do pretty well and get a lot of shots in focus. But you're going to get more shots in focus with an autofocus camera at those apertures than you are in a Leica. And it just is what it is. Now, I've had a lot of success with that before, covering Fernando Tatis Jr., his rehab assignment a couple years back before he got popped for steroids. I was shooting on a Leica 262 that I purchased from my buddy Leica Lee, my first Leica M body that I had owned and not rented for an extended period of time, and shooting on a 50mm Summicron V3, and I love the images. I got him running away, coming to me at f2. I have some of my favorite images on that camera and lens setup, and I wasn't using my autofocus Canon 1DX Mark I, and I wasn't using my Fujifilm X-H2 at the time. I chose to open up and shoot on the Leica pregame, and I got some of my favorite shots. And honestly, they're shots that I'm glad that I took using that lens and body combo, because it kind of opened me up to, wow, this is an amazing world, and wow, this is so easy, and wow, it's not as hard as I thought it would be. But immediately after that, I sucked. There was like a 4 to 5 month span where I felt like I couldn't hit critical focus on anything. I thought it was the lenses, trying all of them. I thought it was a rangefinder patch, and it just turned out that I'm just not as good as I thought that I was. I think I know whatever was said in Dodgeball. Put that right here.
Oh, I don't think I'm a lot dumber than you thought that I thought I was once.
And so when people talk about like, hey, it's faster than autofocus, a lot of times, it's not really. And we need to stop over embellishing things to make certain cameras and things sound better. Yes, zone focus is faster than autofocus if you're shooting a zone. But if you're shooting wide open, at f2, at f1.4, at even f2.8, it's not faster, and we have to stop over embellishing that. And because of that, you do miss quite a few shots. And honestly, that's the part that really hurts me whenever it comes to photography. The body's great. The sensor is just a regular CCD sensor or CMOS sensor in my opinion, so I'm not writing anything, nothing to write home about to me, because I shoot X-Trans also, and to me that sensor is better than anything you're getting out of a regular CMOS. And a lot of times clients don't even notice, and a lot of time if you're looking at photos, you don't even notice. But the biggest benefit and also the biggest hindrance is the fact that I'm not good at this camera. And that's kind of what draws me to it and the reason why I've kept it for 2 years. You guys, I got super duper used to autofocus just hitting. And when Fujifilm got to a point where the autofocus was great, I mean, it's not that that's a bad thing. Yes, for client work, I want to make sure that I'm hitting all the time. But I still kind of miss the idea of me growing at something and getting better at something. I'm a former athlete. I am very, very competitive in a lot of things that I do, including in competing with myself to get better. And there were just times whenever I'd throw on an XT4 or on an XH1 or an X Pro 3 for the most part, 70 to 200 or the 200 millimeter f2, or I threw on a 33 1.4 or a 23 f2 or a 35 f2, whatever it is, and just getting everything that you want. Whether it's wide open, whether it's not, you're always hitting focus. And a lot of people would say, well, Fujifilm isn't that great. It is. It's really that damn good. And sometimes it just felt kind of sterile and bland. So much that about 2.5 years ago, I started shooting nothing but manual focus or adapted M glass on my X Pro 3. And that's kind of what brought me to where I am today, to where this is my, camera of choice. It has nothing to do with the badge and the prestige. Yes, it's nice. Yes, it's a topic of conversation. More than anything, what it is about these cameras that really does this for me is the fact that I'm not good. It really does expose me at where I'm not proficient as a photographer in this one area. I'm really damn good at photography. And if you put an autofocus camera in my hand, I'm going to do really damn good things. I'm going to have great composition, great color. I'm going to make sure that I hit the lighting correctly and exposure. Like, it's going to be the bee's knees. You should catch me at an event shooting an autofocus camera. I'm literally just putting up Wilt Chamberlain numbers. But whenever I started transitioning to this for event, documentary, portrait, every single thing, photo, stills, work, things changed quickly. I had to start thinking on my feet more. Now I had to control aperture, ISO, shutter speed for the situation, make sure that everything's lined up and I have correct exposure. And then I also had to worry about focusing. And then I had to worry about focus and recomposing and making sure my composition was right. And this completely just bamboozled me for a long time. Now, let me reassure you, my clients didn't suffer. One of the things that this camera taught me was if I missed the shot, keep it pushing. Like, you can't bitch about it. Honestly, I put a back cover screen on, or a back cover on this camera, and so I could use it like I use my X Pro 3 whenever I had it, where I'm just shooting and moving. I'll review the images at the end of the night. But listen, if you miss a shot that seems like a big shot, you have to have in the back of your mind, every shot has to be big. And it kind of does make you work a little bit harder. But again, that's not to say that that's the camera. That's partially on me. But if it was this big of an issue, I would have easily sold this thing or my 262 and just moved back into a Fujifilm camera. If autofocus was a huge issue amongst cameras, period, I would have moved over to a Sony or a Canon. And we got to be honest, whenever we're talking about autofocus anyway, we're at a point right now to where it hasn't been bad. And honestly, if you're telling me you're missing a shit ton of shots because of autofocus and a camera system being horrible, any camera system that's using phase detect autofocus, let me just say that. Honestly, it's skill issue. It's you. There's a patch that they're rolling out. There's a software, a firmware update for every single human. It's called Get Gooder. But it does need to be said that in a camera like this, whenever there's no autofocus, it does bring up some challenges. There have been times where I've thought, I could get probably a couple autofocus cameras and just be run and gun and done with this bitch and just never have to worry about it. I could go back to shooting film on a little Olympus or something like that, and just that would be my manual focus fix. But again, there's just something about the rangefinder patch, and there's a lot to do with the fact that it is challenging to hit shots on this for me personally. And again, that's no smoke to Leica. That's what this is built for. Honestly, whenever people talk about the Leica experience, a lot of times it really just does tune down to the fact that they're talking about M bodies. But yeah, I don't want people to step into thinking about I'm gonna get a Leica and it's gonna make me better, because it's not. That's not true. Listen, I don't believe that we inherently just get better at photography because we change the system and we have a new mindset. Listen, that is so, I don't want to say anecdotal, but what's the word? That's such a placebo effect, honestly, whenever we get new camera gear. And it doesn't matter if it's a manual focus camera, if it's film or whatever, we always think this camera is going to bring me to new heights, only to sometimes a few months later have buyer's remorse. I see it a lot. I'm in Leica forums. You know how many M11s are bought for $9,000 and they're being sold for $6,300 right now because people need to recoup funds and switch back to Sony? You see it every day. But no, this camera won't make you better. There's so many photos that have been taken on in cameras that I can tell you right now can be taken on a Sony a7 III with a 35mm pancake lens, and they would look exactly the same after editing. Let's stop pretending like a camera is going to make us better at something. Let's stop pretending like by switching your camera system, you're going to be taken to new heights if that camera system doesn't bring you some things that are needed for work, jobs, etc. that have literally been holding you back. If you're someone who's been previously shooting only on DSLR and you're shooting on a Canon 5D Mark I, you've been making it work, but now you have the opportunity to step into photo and video, and you're going to be shooting sports or something, and now you want to step into a Sony A9 Mark I or Mark II. Yeah, that makes sense, because guess what? The upgrade will help you for the job where your gear previously would make it harder. That makes sense. But it just inherently act like because the name on the front of this camera is Leica that it's going to make you better photography because of prestige and because the weight of it and it slows you down. It's not true. The same thing again with film, with all these things. If you need to slow down, just slow down. Like, don't blame your camera system, don't blame society, don't blame social media. That's a you issue, and it's become easier and easier and easier as photographers, videographers, just people in general, to blame everything but yourself for the way that you act on a given notice. So yeah, this camera right here has hurt my photography. I'm at a 75% success rate instead of a 95% success rate. I'm getting less shots that are hits whenever I'm culling through, and I'm getting less things at critical focus. Yeah, it is 100% honest. This is hurting my photography. I'm not as good as focusing on this as letting the camera focus for me on every other camera system. But I don't choose to stay on there because it makes me better, it changes me, it slows me down. I choose it because I'm having a damn blast and I'm having fun. That's literally it. Because at the end of the day, when you're a professional, a lot of you guys will know this, sometimes you need something to be able to take you out of the mundane. With all that being said, I hope you guys can understand, it is super duper cold here in South Texas. I literally recorded part of this video the other day, but I actually went through all my points today and it was sunny. So it wouldn't match up, but hopefully this comes out and the color is nice. Shooting on the XH2, F-Log 2, and just, you know, working on how this color is gonna work out for today. That'd have been nice if that flap was up for the lighting purposes. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy this. Remember to take it light, but take it. Yeah, have a good one.